right, what's going on? It's your man Jerome Smith, also known as JSAK the Best. And on this episode of Hustling Different, I got a very special guest in the building. You already know, you might know her as number 0 for University of Maryland, the superstar, but not your average superstar. And then some of you all might know as your favorite teacher, Miss Austin. And then for the people that don't know, you about to know, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Sequoia Austin. How you doing? How you doing, sis?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so tell me, like, what was it like growing up? Like, where did you grow up? And just what was the environment like in the household and outside?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Maryland and PG County pretty much my entire life. Well, obviously up until I was an adult. But yeah, I was my mother was a single mom from my birth until I was about 8 years old. We were living out in where was that? Wheaton, I think. When I was younger.
You was out there, yeah.
Yeah. Out there. So then when I was 8, my mother began her relationship with my now stepfather, and they got married shortly after. So we were all living together from then, but spent most of my childhood, adolescence in Greenbelt, bounced around to Lanham a little bit, so kind of back and forth in that general area. I'm very blessed. I've always looked at my childhood that way. Again, my mother was just a passionate Black woman that wasn't going to let anything hold me back, or, education wise, just opportunities wise. I mean, she put me in all sorts of sports as a kid. I was trying different things. I was out there. I wasn't very, I didn't feel very sheltered, or like I didn't get opportunities or nothing like that. And then definitely having a father figure since I was 8 years old. And then eventually 2 siblings who I'm 14 and 10 years older than, definitely shaped me as a person, just to be able to be that role model my entire life. And as we talk about education, you'll probably hear me mention them a few more times, just because, that's been my driving force to this day, has been my little brother and sister. So, I won't say I had any type of turbulent childhood or nothing like that. Definitely was blessed from start to finish, with clothes on my back, shoes on my feet, and the best opportunities. I played basketball since I was 4 years old, so I was always kind of in that club circuit of just, tournaments on the weekend, starting off at the rec center, doing drills and getting it in with coach and all that kind of stuff.
Hold on, I want to talk about that. So how like, what was the spark? What made you want to start playing basketball? Like, was that, you say, your first love?
For sure. I mean, like I said, it wasn't one of those like, was watching TV. I never watched TV as a kid either. My mom didn't allow me to watch TV. So it wasn't one of those things where I like saw a basketball game. I was like, oh, wow. It was more like through experience. And that's always been my deal with basketball, is like, I've never been a huge basketball watcher, but I'm always just like, I'd rather just shoot some hoops at the court by myself than sit and watch a game for 2 hours. And so, like I said, like at the time when I was like 4 or 5 years old, like my mom had me at tennis. She had me, try soccer, all sorts of things. And kind of basketball was that one that just stuck. So, yeah.
Nice. So talk about your elementary school. Where did you go to school at?
I went to school at, not Robert Goddard, that was middle school. What elementary school did we go to?
He's slipping.
I was slipping.
Matthew Henson. Yeah.
I said it first.
Yeah, I give you that.
Matthew Henson. Oh man, that was way out, man. I remember going there. I started there in actually, was I in second grade? Yeah, I started there in second grade.
You did? So hold on, where did you go first grade?
I was at New City Montessori School.
Where's that?
That's up the road. Dang.
I never heard of that.
I think that's off of East West Highway, somewhere way up.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's one of those that had like a church downstairs, but they had like a school like.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. So did you go there when you was in like pre-K and kindergarten?
Yeah. So that was pre-K, kindergarten, I believe, first grade. So Montessori school from the jump. Again, my mom with her educational mindset of like, let's give this a try. This will be a cool. So elementary school, I came there about second grade, and you know how Montessori set up first, second, and third graders together, fourth, fifth, and sixth graders together. So I was coming in kind of late, late to the game. So, that was a little different, and definitely in an environment and a neighborhood that, I wasn't used to.
Yeah.
Definitely a bit rough over there in Baldwin Park.
To say the least, yeah.
Yeah, but, I was like, we're going to get this Montessori popping. If you're going to stay in it, we're going to, you're going to do what you got to do. So yeah, so that was a fun experience. I have a lot of memories from elementary
Yeah.
school, just from, you know, playing basketball at recess, you know,
Yeah.
most of them are around just being the athletic girl. That's pretty
Of
much
course,
all my
you was
memories.
always that one.
Yeah,
You was
exactly.
definitely the one.
Exactly.
Now break it down because a lot of people don't know what Montessori is. Like break it down. What exactly is Montessori?
Yeah, so it's an educational philosophy really, where they pretty much it's a focus on kind of like whole child, and I know a lot of people say that, but from development it's only really designed for like pre-K up until like that late elementary. I think as you get to that fifth and sixth grade it's a little less effective, but for early education it's super effective because it's focusing on everything about the child, from developing motor skills to social emotional to you know, educational independence, right? Like being able to drive your own learning and that sort of thing. So that's like some of the foundations which I think are so critical, and I think it's made me a fantastic learner, just throughout my own schooling, to kind of have those foundations of like being able to do those things, but especially that independence. You know, a lot of it is, you know, the teacher teaches you a certain skill or a certain, you know, standard as they would call it, and then you go with your materials, right? It's very tactile, it's not abstract, but everything's very tactile in your learning, so that when you do go to more abstract concepts you already kind of have that foundation of understanding what it looks like, what it feels like. And so yeah, the teacher will teach you a certain concept, and then you have like 3 or 4 days to do that lesson, do the next set in that lesson that's a little bit more challenging. And that third one, you go to that, you say, hey teacher, I'm on the third, you know, I'm on the third set of this, I'm on the most challenging. They see that you've mastered that skill, then they teach you the next one. And so that just an independence in your learning of like, here's the basics, go take these materials and these lessons that are already set up for you to manage on your own, and then call me back in as a teacher when you're ready to show me that you mastered it.
And I love that. I love that. Now, do you think you could have thrived in a regular comprehensive school? Like, do you think you would have turned out to be the same person that you are today?
No, definitely wouldn't be the same person. Would I have thrived? Absolutely. You know, that's the resilience that I've been taught from myself and just from my parents and the situation I am. I can thrive in any situation, but would I be who I am today? Absolutely not. I think, like I said, those foundational um, skills that Montessori, you know, just instills in you from the jump. I think that that has affected me as a person, as an educator, as a learner, in all facets.
Of course. Now, do you remember the first time that we actually met?
Me and you,
Yeah.
I not know.
Cause I never remember, but of course, you know what I'm saying, fourth grade. But I don't remember like the moment. Like I don't remember
Me
the moment.
neither. Me
Yeah.
neither. Now, Mr. Ellis's class.
Yeah. Yeah. Now talk about the switch to Robert Goddard. Like how did that impact you? And like what was your experience like there?
Yeah. I remember there's only a few pieces I remember of that. I remember visiting beforehand when they said that they're going to do that switch. I know that
I didn't
that's,
even know that. Like I didn't even know we could visit.
yeah, I think I remember seeing, again, my mother, she's like, I'm
Yeah,
not,
she on
I
it.
got to know what I'm putting my child into when it comes
Yeah.
to their education. So I know my mom was probably doing all that. But yeah, I remember the switch. I remember being in that one staircase right there, and then somebody was explaining how the school was going to be set up half and half, and like that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Because I know that it was my understanding is that it was a regular, just like public standard middle school,
Yeah.
prior to kind of those two programs coming to use that building, and French immersion and Montessori coming to use that building. So I remember that vaguely, and just knowing too that it was a little bit closer to like my side of PG County where
Yeah.
I was living at, and that sort of thing. I was going to be, was I living there already?
Yeah, I was about to ask you, did you move before
I
or
think I
after?
was in Greenbelt still. So I think I was in
Okay.
Greenbelt
But still,
still.
that was way closer anyway.
Yeah, and then a little later on, like once we were in middle school, like seventh and eighth grade, I was walking because we had moved right across the street in that
Yeah.
neighborhood, Woodstream. So, yeah, that's really all I remember. Just being like, "Wow, we're gonna be sharing this school. It's gonna be a different setup. You know,
Yeah.
you know, we got this upstairs, and then there's this
Yeah,
downstairs."
it was definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah, it was
sure.
definitely
So
an
that's
upgrade.
how I remember it for sure. And then just in terms of impact, you know, it was, you know, when you move locations like that, you draw a different crowd of people. So like all of those people that, you know, that we met and became cool with once we got over there. And then again, that relationship with the other side of the school too. So
Now, how would you define the people that went there? Was it a diverse environment? Was it mainly just one type of people? Like, how would you describe it?
yeah, as I remember it, it was pretty diverse. I mean, I think I remember, you know, seeing more white kids than before when we were over home.
Yeah,
To be honest with
yeah,
you.
yeah.
And a different type of, you know,
Hmm.
white kids, you know,
Yeah,
more of the, I'll say like granola, kind of, you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
That's a good way to describe
Like
it.
just like, you know, there were white kids at Matthew Henson and stuff, but again, it's just a different when you're doing that neighborhood school deal with the programs between, you know, you just draw different demographics, and so
Yeah, it was a different breed.
right. And then again, like I don't think until now that we're talking about it, like how much the idea of having a French immersion, like what is that?
Right.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
it was
What is
very
that?
random at the time. Yeah, it was super random.
And so when you think about that's almost like being, you know, conjoined with an international school, and
Yeah.
like, you know, the type of families that like a lot of African families that speak French and different things like that, to kind of see and understand that for the first time. Like I would have never ever been exposed to that had we not been sharing a building, you know?
Yeah. Now, okay, you graduated from there and then you went to Holton Arms. I never even heard of the school till you went there. So what made you go to Holton Arms?
It actually really came from my experience with basketball. So I was playing AAU basketball at the time, and I was playing on a team with a coach and a few girls that were kind of involved in this independent school world, which again, we didn't know about in PG County. Like, what are independent schools? What are private schools? What y'all doing? Like, we get private schools. We know St. John's, we know DeMatha, but like, what is this other thing that's going on? And so, really, those through my mom, just obviously knowing these parents and having conversations with these parents, she's like, where are y'all going to school? What y'all doing? And so she kind of got tipped off into this whole world of like the independent schools and private schools in Montgomery County and what they had to offer educationally. So once my mom kind of opened up that window to that world, we started kind of applying and seeing what was over there. And man, she visited over there. I remember I couldn't go because probably some basketball tournament. And she said she came back from like their little open house day. She was like, yo, this is like a college. Like this is a college. This is a college campus. This is a college, classrooms, teacher, all of that. And she was like, yeah, I think you really like it. So, you know, we took a look at some other ones too, like Stone Ridge. I don't know if you know Stone Ridge.
Nah, where's that?
It's that's more like right inside the line of DC, right off 495. Like right, soon as that cross from Maryland to DC, I think it's right inside of there. And a few other ones. But honestly, the big push was that I didn't get into the science and tech program at Roosevelt.
Yeah, trust
And
me,
so,
a lot of people didn't. I didn't get into it. I had to finesse my way once I was, you know, already in there. Yeah.
for real, see,
Yeah.
I actually had a conversation the other day with somebody that went there and that I knew from middle school, and she was talking about, you know, the diversity and the you know, I guess the admissions process around science and tech program. And you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, there might have been a few things that, you know,
yeah, it was a little something going
really
on,
awkward.
but
So,
yeah.
but you know, I didn't take that too bad, you know, just because I'm like, you know, maybe just not meant to be.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was a big thing too, because my mom's like, you're not going to Duval.
Nah.
That ain't happening.
Yeah, nah.
You're not going to what's the other one down the road?
Parkdale.
You're not going to
Yeah,
Parkdale.
nah.
In my neighborhood, and then you're not going to Roosevelt regular. And and I'm like, I mean, okay, again, my mother, this is a theme.
She wanted the best of the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get into Holton Arms. I go and visit myself. I mean, I'm just as wild as she was, and made it happen.
Yeah. Now, would you say you're not a good test taker, or you are?
I think I'm a pretty good test taker. I wouldn't say I'm a bad test taker.
Okay.
I'm decent.
I'm decent. So once you graduated from there, how did you end up at Maryland? Because I know you kind of had a different journey when it came to that.
Yeah, for sure. Again, going back to basketball again, I my whole plan since I was 4 years old was to get a basketball scholarship for college, and the team that I played for outside of school, my AAU team, during high school, kind of got on a squad that I didn't get much playing time. So I had some offers, some interest from some schools, coming up sophomore, freshman year. But when I got to that critical period where the coaches come see you, I didn't play. So a lot of those coaches were like, well, we didn't really see you play when it was important to play. And so, we ain't really got nothing to offer you. There's others that we know are getting it done. So that was pretty devastating. That was a really big shift in my life, because I was like, dang, all right, well, guess I'm not going to college on a scholarship for basketball. So I got to go figure out what else it's going to be. And of course, my mom said, she hugged me, she wiped my tears, but she was like, so what college are we going to? Like, basketball is not the end all be like, so where are we going to school? So I just started applying to schools that I think I would like. And they were all, I think I applied to only 5 colleges, which probably unheard of nowadays. I feel like people are applying to like 10, 12 universities. Man, but I applied to 5. They were all large state schools, University of Maryland, University of Pennsylvania, University of Michigan, and a few others, just large state schools, because I knew that was the vibe that I wanted. And I got into all of them. And so it really just became an issue of distance and what kind of place I wanted to live. And I'll bring back again, my siblings probably at the time were, I don't even know, like 13 and like 8 or something like that, like pretty young. And so I was like, I'm going to stay close to home. I'll be able to be around my siblings, which I want to do. I want to, be around while they're growing up and that sort of thing too. So I ended up just sticking close to home, and I got into the College Park Scholars, which is like a lower level honors program. It's like not like the end all be all honors, but it's like kind of another one where you can kind of do some different tracks. So I ended up getting into that program and started with them and started to do that track with them. So that was kind of like, all right, I'm going to college. I'm going to do it.
Now, when you was at University of Maryland, you was the shortest person on the team. Like, talk about just that experience. And I feel like you should have got more playing time, but just talk about, your experience there. How did you even end up, playing the drum set during the games and stuff? Just talk about everything. Just talk about everything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that whole thing is crazy. So like I said, I was, in my mind, I wasn't going to play college. I wasn't going to play basketball at the college level. The track that I'd taken, the opportunities that I lost kind of stripped that away from me. So of course I said, I'm going to go to college, but maybe I can go be involved in the team at some point. Like, I was literally this close to being a Division I college athlete. I wasn't that far off, just obviously the way that it went. So I was like, maybe I can go be a manager. Maybe they got like practice squad, just somebody, anything just to stay involved in the game that I love. And that summer, so at my summer after I graduated high school, I called up to the office a few times, like nobody really answered, or somebody will get back to you, that sort of thing. I emailed all the coaches, because their stuff is on the website, like, hey, just wondering if there's a way I can be involved in the team. This is my journey. This is everything. Cool. Dead radio silence, nothing. And I'm like, all right, cool. Again, just rolling with the punches. I actually went up there in person. They were having a basketball camp for like younger kids and stuff like that. And I talked to this one like assistant coach, and it's like, hey, I'm just wondering if I could talk to somebody, maybe be involved. And he kind of like was just like, yeah, okay. Like, kind of like, people probably walk up here all the time being like, hey, I want to be on the team, and he's just like, yeah, we'll see. And he's like, we don't really do that. And I'm like, all right, cool. I just left. And later in the summer, probably a month or two later, I get a Facebook message from Brenda Freeze, the head basketball coach. And I'm like, okay. And she had pretty much messaged me saying that she had, everybody got her emails and stuff like that. Sorry, they haven't been able to reach out, but she actually remembered me from when she was recruiting a current player of hers, Tiana Hawkins. So Tiana's also from Maryland. And so when they were out recruiting, she said, I actually remember seeing you play like a year or two ago. And she was like, if you'd like, you could come start working out with the team. And, coaches can't be involved in workouts and stuff during the summer. So she's like, if if they tell us that you can hang, then like you can hang. And I'm like, oh snap.
Yeah, all you need is that opportunity.
Exactly. So I was like, man, we went from nothing to hey, actually I remember you from 2 years ago, come give it a try. So I walked in that gym, started doing open gym with them, started running a few games, started hitting at those workouts, just started busting my butt, man, just going ham. And I guess I left a good impression. And so I guess, again, the coaches couldn't be there to see what I had. So they only could ask the strength coach and a few like fans that used to come and always watch the pickup games, and then the players. And so I guess whatever they said was good. And I think it was later in November. I was looking at the website and I refreshed it and I saw my name on the roster and I was like, oh, oh man. So from there on, then it was just like, I took advantage of my opportunity to be in that position, to be a part of a team, to be a part of a program, that prestigious, that was playing at that level, and the people that I got to play with and run with every day and make better and that sort of thing. Long journey, of course. Yes, I would go ahead and say I think I deserved a little bit more playing time for them.
We all did. We all did.
Putting in there, man. When I tell you, I'm like, I was giving it everything. I mean, summers came along.
Now, do you feel like there was a reason why you didn't get a lot of playing time? Do you consider like maybe it was politics or just, I don't know, was it?
To a degree, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
It's as a walk-on too, you think about at this level, coaches are recruiting and creating a plan for what their team looks like 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. They're looking at kids in 7th grade right now being like, oh yeah, they're going to play with this five center and this, you know what I mean? And so I understand that like walk-ons really aren't in the plan. However, I was, we take it to the weight room, we take it to conditioning, we take it to, practice. Like I was top 5, you know what I mean? And, I didn't have to be up there. I didn't have to be a starter at any point, but I definitely think that I earned a little bit more than I was getting.
I mean, ooh, come on.
But at the same time, I'm a mindset person, and that took me through a lot of different struggles. I mean, like I said, like I can't tell you the cycles, the number of times I'm like, I am number one every summer. Like I outworked everybody on this team this summer. Yeah. And then we get to the games and it's like, dang, what I mean?
Just sitting there, yeah.
Right. And so that really took me like mentally a lot of times just to be like that devastation of like, dang, I feel like I earn more and I just can't get it no matter what I do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm incredibly thankful beyond words for all of the things that I received that were not playing time, right? In the grand scheme of things, the amount of clothes, the amount of shoes, the amount of travel opportunities, the amount of meals I ate, the amount of times I was on TV. I got a whole 5th year of school paid for. Like my education was free. Like there's nothing that's priceless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it actually worked out. Yeah. Because you never know, you could have got hurt, something real bad where it could have affected you in the long run. So everything worked out. Everything happened for a reason.
How it was supposed to. I mean, and you brought up the drums too. Like I was always the energy, positivity spark plug or whatever. So we would go to schools and do shoot around. Have that practice before the game and stuff like that. And they have this stuff set up for the band. And so that just this one time I was like, oh, let me go over there. They had some sticks out. Sometimes I have the sticks out. So I had sticks. I started banging one out, and it was like, oh. So then every school we go to, Sequoia, get on the drums. Sequoia, get on the drums. So yeah, I was an opportunity, man. I was dancing with the cheerleaders. I was playing the drums.
All that.
Everything, every opportunity, just taking advantage of it, soaking up. And I wouldn't. And honestly, again, playing time aside, I wouldn't change anything. Everything happened exactly like it was supposed to, and looking back at, the girl that didn't have any opportunities coming out of high school to, my senior year, I'm cutting down a piece of a net going to the Final Four.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, can't change. You can't change that.
Yeah. Now I want to kind of go back a little bit. Like you was playing the drums in the middle of the games in front of thousands of people. Like, did that just come out of nowhere, or did you learn that, beforehand? Like, was you a drummer, or did you play any instruments? Talk to me. Break it down.
Absolutely, musician from the jump. So my grandmother is the person that got me into music. She was a saxophone, alto saxophone player. She played all through her childhood, as well as in college, and as well as after college. She was in a few professional groups playing the saxophone. So she was super passionate about that. And so in fourth grade, I started alto saxophone. That was my first instrument. And that's actually saxophone has been one of my top instruments all through school.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that was my first instrument in the fourth grade. I stuck with that for a little bit. And then did I change up in middle? Yeah, in middle school, I started doing the percussion. That's where you and I used to, I still got that picture of me, you on the stage doing a little snare drum solo.
Classic.
Connecticut halftime.
I still remember. I remember the whole thing too.
Me too. So did the percussion deal in middle school, gave that a try. Also tried the trombone in middle school. I did a little spurt of the trombone.
I always wanted to ask you, what made you switch? Because when you switched, it was so random, but I was like, all right.
So cool, man, with the slide. You could, that's so cool. So I switched up for a second and did that. I was still doing a little percussion, obviously, between there. Like, I don't know if it was like percussion, trombone percussion, or some version of that. And then in high school, I continued. I was in band and jazz band, and also did a little percussion in the chamber orchestra. Okay. So I did that. And then, so in the jazz band, I ended up switching to baritone sax. So I played baritone sax in the jazz band for 3 or 4 years. I did tenor and baritone in the jazz band. And then I actually ended up playing the tuba in the regular band. So I was playing tuba for 4 years. And it was just like the trombone. I was like, look, like, this is my experience. I talked to the teacher, like, these are the instruments I play, but like, I'm really interested in tuba. She's like, well, we need a tuba player. So I picked it up. I was just like, all right, I'll learn. I'll figure it out. I'll learn so that I can play whatever music we play. So that ended up being awesome. And I had the opportunity to still continue some percussion as well. So, I going to college and then committing to basketball and doing that, full time, any opportunity I had to still play some music, I definitely took advantage of that. So I
love that. Now, do you have a favorite instrument that you've played?
Yeah, I mean, I love percussion, but I also really love saxophone. Like I said, those are my two loves. I love playing a drum set. I love just the snare drum by itself as well. And then just baritone sax. I loved the baritone sax. I really gravitated towards lower instruments. I like playing like that background beat, that walking bass in the back. And so I really liked I ended up liking the baritone sax even more than the alto, really.
Now, do you feel like playing instruments and just learning music theory like had any impact on who you are right now?
As I talk about as an educator now, think about the experiences as a child that music kind of supplements, like the way it affects your brain, the way that you can look at things and process things different. Absolutely. And for me to be, do percussion and brass and, woodwinds and like different, I got my mind thinking in a lot of different ways, and music just itself, the way that, vibrations work on our brain and the way sounds come together. I think it has a huge impact on how we develop and how our brains develop. And so I think it definitely supplemented, that Montessori foundation I already had and moving from there. So yeah, absolutely. I recommend it. I hope to get my kids into music early on.
Yeah, it's a must. Yeah. Now, at what point did you want to be a teacher? Because I never knew that you wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah, actually ninth grade. Ninth grade is when I wanted to, when I knew I wanted to be a teacher. At Wentworth Arms, I had a really cool biology teacher. She was young. I think she was like 24, 26 or something like that. Okay. And I never had like just a young,
never.
bubbly teacher.
Yeah, yeah, we never. I don't think, actually, no, the youngest person was probably Mr. Stafford. That was probably the youngest. Yeah.
Yeah. He was probably in his 20s too. He was probably by the time, But yeah, so I never really had a teacher like that. And I was just like, what would it be like to be that cool, young, hip, rock and roll teacher? Because it's just like, I mean, that's something that's very new. And the school I teach at now is like so diverse, so young, so all of that. But all the situations I've been in as a student and then my first job, even as a teacher, is like that stereotypical, like, old white lady. Like, it's like, like that's what I've always had and been around. And so for me to have that opportunity to be like, huh, that's kind of cool. You're working with kids and like, they think you're cool, but you're also their teacher. And it's like this weird dynamic, and it's like that sort of thing. And so I really, really like that. So really from ninth grade on, I was like, I think I'm gonna be a teacher. I think I'm gonna be a ninth grade biology teacher specifically.
Okay.
And so yeah, I stuck with that. I've literally been saying that since I was 14 years old.
Wow.
And you know, my experiences in college, I studied biology. My undergrad degree is in biology, and then I also was doing education as well, supplementing some education classes to get that degree. And all the experiences I had, whether it be mentorship, you know, working with kids in basketball, you know, student teaching, all those things. Every time I did some sort of thing that was kind of career-like, I was like, yeah, this is it. I was just reassured. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm gonna get this degree, I'm gonna do this thing, and then they get to it and they're like, this is not what I wanted, you know? And so I never had that. Like every single time, like I was just like, wow, this is actually what I want to do, and I'm good at it, and I love it. So
nice. I love that. Now, what was it like when you was a student teacher at Annapolis High School?
yeah, it was cool actually. I really liked it. That was the first real taste of like teaching ninth grade biology. Like the thing I said I was gonna do for the last 8 years. I was actually finally doing it, and it was cool. You know, it was a little tough, just because at the high school level, they've got folks that were only a few years younger than me. I'm 22 years old teaching 20-year-olds at some point.
Now, what type of school was it? Like, how would you describe the environment in the school? Like, was it wealthy kids? Did they come from like poor backgrounds? Like, what was it like?
Yeah, so that school has an IB program. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's
break it down for the people that don't know.
So, oh gosh, international I forget what it stands for, but it's pretty much a program within a school, almost like a science and tech within Roosevelt. But it is pretty much, it's like an accelerated program. So like everything is centered around like AP courses and like honors courses, and like just accelerating your education and setting you up for college success, pretty much. So that program attracted wealthy white people. So there was that population that was in the school that was in the IB program, but they also had the very standard high school, which was pulling from the neighboring. And so that brought, you know, your Black and brown kids, and also, you know, students from less advantaged backgrounds. So that is what I was teaching in like the normal high school, with that population. So there were some tough kids in there, you know, and I dealt with a lot of Black and Hispanic students that were just, you know, not motivated and in some tough spots, and, you know, really at that pivotal part of their lives where they're like, you know, I'm either going to choose this life or I'm going to choose this life. So I actually really, really loved and enjoyed that. I mean, it gave me some of the first glimpses though at some of the terrible disadvantages that folks have when it comes to education. I mean, and also how, I want to say, unfortunate our system is just as a country of education, and what we value and how we push kids through and that sort of thing. I definitely got my first glimpses of that, and most vividly through a student. I think he was a junior. I think he was a junior or a senior, and he couldn't read. He couldn't read. And I'm like, I'm 99% positive he graduated from high school. You know, if he stood there and he stayed there and he kept on coming like he was coming, he graduated from high school. And, you know, students that are that far along in their education and don't have the foundational skills, it manifests itself in behaviors, right? So I mean, that was a kid. You couldn't say nothing to him because he was going to blow up. Couldn't say nothing. And what was he doing? It was work avoidance. It was all work avoidance behaviors, because it's like, as soon as you ask me to do something, I'm going to have to read. I'm going to have to write, and I can't do those things. And I don't want to look stupid, and I don't want to look like less than. And so, you know, those were the toughest kids. And so I kind of see that correlation in real life, in real time, for the first time, definitely was super interesting. And another demographic that I was able to work with was immigrant students, essentially, that were, like I said, 20 years old, close to aging out, trying to take advantage of their free education while they can. And so a lot of students that had minimal English. And so I used my my minimal Spanish, I'll say my moderate Spanish, to help those students and build relationships with them. And also too, that I was only two to 3 years older than them. And so that also was a dynamic that was like super cool, and they appreciated. And it was like, yo, miss, I need you to help me. Like, I know you get it. You know what I mean? And so that was really, really cool. So I thought that was an awesome student teaching experience, just being there. The program I was in was a 1-year master's program. So June to June, with a full year of student teaching. And so, to kind of get that full experience of being in a classroom for, like, it wasn't just like a quarter, it wasn't a semester. It was like, you are a teacher for a full year. And they gave us a little, I think like 6 weeks out of middle school, because technically secondary education is 7 through 12 or 6 through 12, depending on where you're at. So we did a little bit in middle school too. And I love the middle school we went to. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. I like this age. I told myself I'd never do middle school. The cats are crazy. They don't know what they want. They got all their hormones and their feelings on their sleeve every day. And it's just like, I could never. But as you're probably going to say, nah, that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm sitting.
See what happened?
Yeah.
Now, after you graduated, you went to Tampa, right?
Yes.
Now, what made you go to Tampa, and like, what was the experience like?
Yeah, so, with that decision to stay at Maryland and go to college there, I had not left town. I haven't lived anywhere. I lived in Maryland my whole life. My family never moved from state to state or anything. Didn't move even from county to county, really. I was in PG County my whole life. So, and I think about this now, and I'm like, why did I feel like this was so important? But as soon as I graduated, I was like, I've got to go live and do something.
It's a whole world out here. Like, a lot of people get trapped in just one place, their whole life, and don't even realize it. Like, but go ahead, continue.
That is my one thing that I've held on to even to now, and as we continue my story and we maybe get to what the future holds, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But yeah, I had this urge of like, I've got to go see other things. Like, there is a big old world out there, and I've had opportunities. Like, something I always reference is a trip that I did with my grandmother when I was about 10 years old, I think. And we got into her car, and she planned out this whole trip from Maryland to California, back to Maryland. And we stopped at all the big spots. I mean, all of the attractions, and like, I reference that all the time. So, have you been here? Yeah, I went there when I was 10 with my grandmother. Have you been? Yeah, I went, just to be able to say, various places and having that experience. And so I think from that's what really drove. I was like, there's a world out there, and I can go anywhere. And especially being an educator, like,
yeah,
you can do that anywhere. And I don't mean just this country. You can go
anywhere
on the globe.
Japan, anywhere.
Exactly. So I was just like, where am I going to go? And at the time, my aunt and her kids, so my cousins and my grandmother, did live in Florida. And so I had applied everywhere. I applied to schools, to teach at schools in Hawaii, California, Texas, everywhere. I was overseas. A lot of overseas ones wanted you to have a little bit of experience. So I was like, all right, let me do a little experience here, and then go from there. So I ended up picking Tampa, and I was able to live with my family for a little bit until I got on my feet. So that was really cool. But I got a job teaching middle school down there by a really awesome principal. And that was my first job. And I went in, and I was like, all right, I'm a middle school science teacher. Let's get it.
So what was it like your first year actually being an official teacher?
It was great. It was a little scary, just because, there are so many more pieces than just going in and teaching what you know, right? I think I had definitely, doing that year of student teaching, I had gotten over that thing of, so when you're not a teacher and you're studying teaching, you're like, okay, I gotta know mx plus b equals c or whatever. I gotta know.
I haven't heard that in so long. Hold on. Is that what, the slope? Yeah. See, I kind of remember.
So yeah. Good job.
Yeah, I remember a little bit.
But that first stage is like, all you think is like, I got to know my content so that I can give it to my students, right? And then you get these experiences teaching where you're like, oh, like, there's all these other things. Like, I have to manage my classroom. I have to, develop lesson plans that make sense. I've got to I got to follow a curriculum. I have to hit standards, and that's part 2. And then part 3 is like, okay, I'm doing all those things, but I need to also like build relationships with these kids, because they're not going to take anything unless they know I care about them and they care about me even a little bit. So that's like the next stage. And then but the next stage after that I learned as a teacher, actually being a teacher of my own, was like, then there's all this like what district and what school are you working in, right? Like, what are the rules that your school does? Like, do you have to go on a lunch duty? Like, when do you plan? Like, what like cohort teams do you have to be in? Like, how do you, what do you have to do for the school? Like, is there a spirit day? Is there a pep rally? Like, how do you involve yourself in that? Like, so that was the next step. Like, all of like, how do you take a day off when you need to, how do I put in an absence? Like all these things that are like school and district specific. So that was really overwhelming, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing as soon as I got there. But once I kind of got over that hump, and all of the other stages that I talked about were able to come into play, it was great. I mean, it was so great. Again, it was everything I imagined. I was the cool, young, hip, bubbly teacher, you know what I mean? But the Sequoia in me was also like I'm very serious about my professional line versus my like personal line and different things like that. And so like, I was still like, I'm cool, we're cool, but we're going to get things done. Like, I'm not going to be the young, cool teacher that you're just like, oh, we ain't got to do nothing in this class. Like, nah, we're going to get it done. We're going to learn, we're going to get better, we're going to grow. But we're going to do it in a way that hopefully you feel like I'm relating to you because of who I am and my age. And so my first year was awesome. It was so I taught there for 3 years at Buchanan Middle School in Tampa. And it was so awesome there. And I was really valued because there weren't really any teachers like me. There weren't any young Black females doing what I was doing and connecting with kids like I was connecting with kids. And what I think, looking back now, like making a difference like I did. And I talked to some of my colleagues that I worked with there, and they admired me for what I was doing and what I was able to do. So it was an awesome experience right off the bat.
Nice. I love that. Now, as a teacher, like I have a few friends that work in like different districts where like the budget for like supplies and stuff, like they have to come out of their own pocket for money. Did you ever have to go through something similar like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Hillsborough County, where I was teaching, is like something ridiculous, like top 10 biggest counties in the United States. So when it's that big, and this is my philosophy with anything, with any system, is that the bigger it gets, the less effective it is. Everything is more effective when it's smaller, when it's contained, when you know who your people are, and it's a community type aspect. But the bigger it gets, the crappier it gets, unfortunately. And so Hillsborough County, they've got a lot of holes. And even, now working where I am, I'm like, y'all a little behind with what y'all doing. And just as a district, like, y'all should be moving quicker in a lot of different ways, and supporting your students and your teachers in a lot of different ways that I'm seeing other places are doing now. I'm like, why can't y'all do it? And 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh, we don't have the money to do that. We don't have the money to pay for that. So absolutely. I mean, I paid for a lot of stuff at my first school, a lot of things. I was single, first job. I had my little apartment. Like I could slide a few dollars towards some supplies here and there. Like it wasn't, like I had 5 kids, and I'm like, I ain't got money for y'all. I want my own family. You know what I mean? So I was in a good position of like, I felt like I was making good money because, it was my first salaried full on job. You know what I mean? Like I was good, but it is unfortunate that that's the circumstance. But I, again, kind of take some of that stuff in stride of just like, it comes with it. I'm going to do, when you're doing it for students, when you're doing it for kids, you can't put a price tag on it. So
as someone who's in the education system, do you feel like you have a solution to like maybe where teachers don't necessarily have to go through that?
Like paying for their own stuff?
Yeah.
No, I definitely don't. I mean, okay. I can create money. But like I said, I think I'll go back to my first point about if the system was working on a smaller scale, mm-hmm. there would be an opportunity to engage your community a little bit more, right? Yeah. So like, there's all these, so when you're working in this large school district, right, there's all these circumstances that bring students from faraway places, whether it be just busing, just mm-hmm. to diversified school, whether it be, there's a deaf and hard of hearing program here, but there's not one near you. So you have to bus over here, right? There's all these circumstances of why people, or this school's better or that school's not better. And you get people from all over. And not saying that's a bad thing necessarily. That creates more, perspectives, more diversity. But when you're working within your own communities, right? If all the people on my block are sending their kids to this school, right? They have more of an investment in it, and then they're giving their time, they're giving their money towards their education, the education of their neighbors, the education of their friends and family, and so and they're supporting teachers in that way, right? But when it's kind of like that's just the lady that teaches the kids, then it's like it's more detached. And so I do think as one possible solution, is that we've got to cut back just as a country on how we value we just want everything to be big, right? And it's like smaller, especially in a situation where it's better, smaller class sizes, smaller school districts, smaller buildings and schools, so that we can really focus on what matters.
Okay. Now I kind of want to switch gears for a minute. So when you was in Florida, you kind of you met a very special person, a very, very special person. I never knew the answer to this question, but okay, you're a part of the LGBTQ community. And like, when did you know you was a part of that community? Because like for me, like, and a lot of our mutual friends, like we always knew, but we never had the conversation. So like, when did you know?
Yeah, when did I know myself? I'd say probably second grade.
Wow. Okay.
But when did I have the confidence to be out? Not until not until about 5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's crazy because like we knew, but yeah.
I know. Yeah. Until I was like, and I guess that milestone to me was more of like being able to be out with and be able to say that to my parents, obviously like the biggest milestone. But even before that, I wasn't like super explicit about it with friends or anybody else. So, like I said, it was kind of like a unsaid thing for sure. Like I said, like even we're talking about middle school, like I'm the one cat that's just winning all the field day thing.
Yeah, but it was cool though. It wasn't like we looked at you, what I'm saying, a different, funny or anything. Like we just accepted you for who you was. Like
absolutely. Yeah, I've been a tomboy forever. I've been masculine forever.
Yeah.
Especially playing basketball my whole life. It's like shorts and a t-shirt. What's the issue, man?
Yeah. But I remember it was those very few occasions where you had to like wear a dress or something. It was just like, nah, that's not you. That is not you.
Till this day, it's not me. But yeah, so yeah, I've always known myself since I was very, very young. But the journey itself, just socially and familially, has been different. I didn't feel comfortable in myself, or just being able to express that part of me for a long, long time. And I think even on a bigger scale, right, like acceptance around LGBTQ has, in the past 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years, has been a total.
It's way different. It's way different.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
it's way different.
I'm not trying to say like I'm a lady from like 1920.
Nah, but it was different. It was different. It was almost like a stigma, what I'm saying, to even, think like that. So I can kind of understand where you was coming from.
Yeah.
But like, if you was younger, like say like right now, if you was like 10 years old, I'm sure it would be more accepting and you wouldn't be having second thoughts, and stuff like that, and just be more open to having that conversation.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like I think about and just the stuff that I see on social media, and then working with kids, especially middle school kids and that sort of thing. And it's interesting to see that like there's so much support, and I think less of a stigma, but at the middle school level, kids are still like how they were 20, 30, 40 years ago, and just being like rude and mean and disgusting about it. And so it's so interesting to see. And when I encounter kids like that, I'm like, kids that are trying to identify, as LGBTQ, or have, taken the big plunge of like, even at this age, I'm just going to be who I'm going to be. And I think that's extremely brave because kids are just nasty.
Yeah.
But seeing that at the middle school level, I'm just like, look, wait till you get to high school. Because all of a
Yeah.
sudden, high school, everybody's like, everything's
It's
cool.
different. Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
It's like just that one summer and then being with, obviously the age difference, then you become just little fish in a big pond, but you see that people are doing them. And like that's what high school is, right? Every movie that you see, right? There's the gay kids, and then there's the black kids, all the tables at lunch, right? And then there's the emo, like that's still very much a thing. And so all of a sudden you get to high school and it's like, just do you, you know what I mean? Nobody's gonna give you, everybody's doing their own thing. And so that's my big piece when I talk to middle schoolers that are kind of dealing with that. I'm like, look, it gets better sooner than it did.
Yes, very
back
soon.
when I was in school, right? Like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
What was it like when you first had that conversation with your parents? Like, were they supportive, or did it kind of catch them off guard, or like, what was it like?
Yeah. The biggest thing, like I said, I have a mom and a stepdad, and so I'm I won't say very close, but I'll say I have the stronger relationship with my mother because that's my mom.
Yeah.
Like, and so that was really the biggest. I knew that was the biggest hurdle for me. Growing up, you pick up certain little hints and vibes about how she feels about certain things and things like that. And so that's what really deterred me from, being honest with her or being honest with them for the longest time. And so that was the big hurdle. So what I actually did, and it's funny, I was sitting in the parking lot of Annapolis High School during my student teaching, and I sent my mom an email. Lord, not a call, but I sent her an email where I'm just like, I know it's not what you want to hear, but this is what it is, and I need you to be supportive. And I was like all defensive and all that kind of stuff. And so that was my big, coming out party. And she had emailed me back a one-liner that
I would hope so.
She said, I still love you. I'm just concerned about your kids or how you raise your kids or something like that. And I was like, okay. So after that, I was like, okay, cool. Like,
got the monkey off your back. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I did have a girlfriend at the time. And like a little while before that, I think that person didn't put the pressure on me, but that put pressure on myself to not continue to be, if I'm just living and it's cool, but like if I'm trying to have a whole person on my arm, it's like, okay, let's come clean, you know what I mean? And so that kind of, for me, kind of put the pressure of like, if I want to go like truly live my life and go do things, like I would hate to be hiding this part forever, and so that's kind of what pushed me just personally and emotionally to come clean. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Now, what made you move to Denver, Colorado after being in Tampa?
Yeah, so I actually, when I moved to Tampa, I told my mom, I was like, look, if I'm here, I already had a plan. I had a plan that I wanted to travel by living, is what I call it, right? So instead of taking a year off and going all these places and spending $1 trillion that I didn't have, right? I was going to just move to these different places and stay, 2-3 years, maybe 4 if it's a real good place, and kind of live in these different spots and get that experience. And so, when I moved to Tampa, I said, Mom, if I'm here for more than 5 years, like if I get to year 5 and I'm still in Tampa, like call me out on it and be like, look, you said you didn't want to stick around. And so, year 1.5-ish, I did meet someone very special. And her name is Jolena, and we started dating, and we moved in together and did that whole thing. And she's actually born and raised in Tampa, and she had never left home, been anywhere else, did the college thing anywhere else or nothing like that. So she was Tampa born and raised. And so as a couple, I said to her, look, I love it here, but I also, I want to see other places. And she's a very free spirit, very like go with the flow, like just fluid, loving, just everything, like let's do it. And that's kind of who she is for her family. And so she was like, all right, cool, where are we going? I'm ready to go too. Like I need to get out of here. So that was really good because you're getting, you move somewhere, you get in a relationship, a committed relationship, and you're like, ooh, I'm trying to leave, and they're like, wait, I'm trying to stay. So luckily we were both on the same page, and so we just started being like, all right, where are we going? So we started looking up, Google best cities to live in the United States, like, where the black people at,
Yeah.
what are good education systems, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were looking, it kind of narrowed down to Austin, Texas and Denver, Colorado. And we visited Austin, loved it. It's a real cool, bubbly city. It's really dope out there. But man, we visited Denver, we visited Colorado. We were blown away. I'd never been around mountains like this. Such an outdoor living style that people have. Everybody's got their dogs and they're going on hikes and stuff like that. But yeah, came here for her birthday and we stayed out in the mountains for a little bit. I mean, that was it. I was sold after that. I was just like, oh, what is this?
It's a very different vibe.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful out here. And then we stayed in the city for a little while, and then that was cool too. And so after we came back from that trip, we were like, yeah, Denver it is. So just started applying to jobs. I got a job out here. I was like, all right, let's do it.
And as of right now, how many years has it been since you've been there?
So it'll be 2 years in August. Oh, wow. It is August. Oh my gosh, what day is it?
Yeah, time flying. Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 years right now. We moved just about this time, yeah.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You are now the director of student culture at Hill Campus of Arts and Sciences, right?
That is correct. You did your research.
I did. This is what I do. So what exactly does that title mean and what do you do? Break it down.
So this past year was my first year in that position. And then right now I'm going in my second year. It's kind of changed. It's changed titles. I used to be Dean of Culture last year. And so this is essentially the same thing. Just kind of, I guess the new principle that we have is playing around with this, this idea of titles and what we call people, right? And so Dean historically is a very discipline-based sort of title. And so that's why it's kind of shifted over to director. I'm doing the very same things, but again, just that mindset of what is my purpose, right? It's not to be the disciplinarian, it's to be the director of how we function as a school. And that has much more to do with just behavior. So, but essentially, I am in charge of discipline and restorative practices, which I don't know how familiar with that you are. I can explain that a little bit more. But also, yeah, for sure. But in addition to that, just school safety and procedures, supervision of students, coaching and assisting teachers in and dealing with students that may have exhibiting some behavior issues within the classroom, and just overall school culture. So things that we're doing around celebrations and incentives, as well as what we're doing in the cafeteria, how recess plays out, after school sports, all that sort of thing. Yeah, the big thing for me, which kind of got me into this. So I was a teacher when I first moved out here. I taught STEM, which was super, super cool. But then I had an opportunity to move into this idea of culture. And so before in Maryland and in Florida, I've never seen anything like this. We have these positions dedicated to school culture. And so I was like, that sounds like my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? I'm big on relationship building and classroom culture and that sort of piece, even more so than curriculum and instruction. And so I'm like, y'all got a whole thing dedicated to just this. Okay. And so I started kind of almost like internship a little bit. I was like, look, how can I be more involved in this part of the school? And so I started just doing some things with that. But the big piece that I hadn't heard of over on the East Coast was this thing called restorative practices, which has its roots in what do we call it? In the criminal justice system, around pretty much an alternative or supplemental to punitive consequences like jail time and stuff like that. Time itself is not the equivalent to whatever harm that you've caused, right?
Right.
First, as a society, we've established that it is, and it would be crazy if anybody would look at me crazy. I'm like, we shouldn't have prisons. But the idea of restorative practices is that you've caused some sort of harm. And so in order to make it right or attempt to make it right, you need to restore the harm to the people, to the area, to the environment, to the community that you've harmed. And so that idea, again, started in criminal justice systems with, criminals and offenders in prison, right? If I shot somebody or if I killed somebody, right, the ultimate practice of it would be I'm working with a group that we work through that, we talk through that, we take ownership for that. And then you have like mediations with the victims, right? Like, so if it was somebody's brother or sister or son or daughter, right, you would actually talk to them and apologize or do whatever it takes. You would ask them, like, what can I do to repair the harm, right? If you did something, you know, you're selling drugs in a community, right? You could go do some sort of community work for that community because you've done some harm to the people in that community by supplying, you know, that sort of idea. And so bringing it to schools, right? Like students that have harmed the environment or harmed the community in some way, are responsible for restoring that harm to the community in some sort of way. And so that is an idea that's happening in schools here in Denver, and specifically at the school I was at. And I was like, whoa, that is like mind blowing. Like, and that's something that I think I was kind of inherently, like I was already inherently on that mind track, but I didn't really see it as a way, like the way it could work in schools like I did see.
Yeah, like a real thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, oh, I've got to be like, I got to go to all the trainings. I got to see what this is about because this is amazing.
Yeah. See, I wish more schools had that. Like, so what type of school is it that, you know, that you're at right now? Because I never even heard of something like that before.
Yeah. So Denver Public Schools, the district that I work for, so
it's a public school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, that's crazy. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the district itself is doing this stuff, like in all types of school. Like, it wasn't like my school was special. Like, this is a thing that the district actually does and has inherited, and actually started out in California. I think, is it Oakland? I think the Oakland public schools out there. That's like actually where the person that kind of made this a philosophy, a thing, he actually started out there and brought it here like probably like 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. So what was your question? Oh, what's that? Yeah. So I'm in a public middle school. And one of the, I think it's, if not the first, it's like top 3 most diverse, when we talk just demographically, middle schools in this district as well. I know when I first came 2 years ago, it was about a 30-30-30 breakdown for Black, white, and Hispanic. But it's also geographically placed in one of the most affluent areas of Denver, called the Hilltop neighborhood. Like, the school is quite literally surrounded by $1 million mansions. So, but to have that diverse school community, even though where it is geographically, is pretty cool, and I love that dynamic so much.
Nice. Now, how do you feel about like the current state of like the education system and just the curriculum in general? Because like me personally, I just feel like when I was at Roosevelt, like it was a lot of stuff that that was taught that I'm not using today, that they put on a pedestal, and a lot of the things that the dreams and aspirations that I had didn't necessarily align with what they was like trying to craft me to be. Like I always wanted to be more of an entrepreneur, and like even though we've had like entrepreneur classes, it's like it's hard to teach an entrepreneurial class when the person isn't even an entrepreneur themselves. Or like a finance class. Like, how can you teach a finance class when the person that's teaching it isn't necessarily financially literate? You know what I'm saying? So I just felt like it should be more classes like on money management, financial literacy, time management, mental health, just active kindness. You know what I'm saying? Because you need to learn to be kind to people. You know what I'm saying? There's too much hate in this world. So I just want to, just what is your opinion on this whole curriculum and education system right now?
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that we could be doing better. And it starts with, unfortunately, it starts with our values as a country, right? So what do we value as a country? We value money. It's a capitalist society. And so unfortunately, that's what the education system is built on. And speaking long term, right? Like as a country, we're trying to compete with other countries for all of the different things. And part of that is having educated citizens. We can't compete. We can't even start to think about how we're going to compete with China if we're walking around with a bunch of dum-dums that don't know nothing, right? So that's just foundational base from the base, right? And so for that reason, we don't we don't care about all the other things you said, like, right, finding what you're good at and getting a job that you're not going to change and getting a career that you can actually build from the moment you graduate high school, right? Like, there is money in not knowing what you're going to do, right? That right now, the idea is that high school diploma is losing value over each year, because once what you get doesn't really mean anything. And then what the jobs that you get from there are not jobs that are going to make you the most money unless you take some sort of alternative route. And that's kind of like a pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like American dream sort of thing, which is not a reality for most people. And it can only be reality for 1% of the people that go on and become millionaires, right? And so a big shift that I think needs to happen, or for us to be, I guess, just honestly a happier society, is the types of things that you just said need to happen in high school. There shouldn't be discoveries that you have to pay for as a college student, right? Like, they should be the high school should be set up like colleges, right? So college, you take some foundational courses, you get your prereqs in, that sort of thing, kind of get a basis, right? But you're already moving towards picking a major, right? Like, you're figuring out, you're having these experiences, you have these opportunities for clubs and all these things where you can figure out what you like, and then you move towards it, and then you graduate with that degree and that certificate, whatever it is that it's going to take to do that career, right? Imagine if we're doing that at a high school level, right?
Yeah. That's what I always wish, because it's like I was kind of forced to do stuff like calculus and all this other stuff, which I was good at, but it wasn't something that I felt I was going to use in the future, which I'm not right now. All I'm using right now is basic arithmetic. I'm not even using algebra or any other stuff that I learned. So like when you mentioned like the what was it, y equals mx plus b,
Yeah.
like I still remember it, but I'm not using any of that. I'm not using the cosine tangents. I'm not using any of that. So I just, like what you just said, I just wish that they can maybe adapt and just, there are certain fundamental things that we need to learn, you know what I'm saying? But then after that, maybe just tailor it to the individual person.
Exactly, right? And that's the same in high school, right? In college, you do that. And if I didn't have to take upper level history classes because I was doing biology, like, period. But you know what? I will say that, because we are in the system that we're in, I often hear students that say, like, when am I ever going to use this? When am I ever going to use this? And usually if it's math related, I can usually figure out a way that they're going to kind of have to use it. And I'll come up with something easy, quick on the spot. But a lot of the times, what I think is also valuable, and what I think that what kids and people can get out of the way our education system is now, is that in your real life, you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do. In your real life, the challenges that you're going to have to overcome, and if you don't overcome them, there will be natural consequences to it, right? And so I think about, the calculus classes or the history class, or the things that I wasn't necessarily interested in, the things that I necessarily wasn't good at, but I still needed to take those classes. The lessons that I learned by being resilient, by working hard, by expanding my mind to learn things, even if they were kind of out of my wheelhouse. And I think that is an important skill too, right? Kids now that get to a middle school class with like, I don't want to do algebra 1. And I'm like, but you got to, right? And like, even like you just getting through something that you don't like that's a skill.
Because there's going to be plenty of moments where you're going to have to, push through or something that you really don't even want to do, but now you got to keep pushing.
That's becoming like a lost, like, there's this sense of entitlement of like, well, if I don't like it, I ain't gonna do it. And it's like, nah. Like, even in your dream job, even if you're doing it's always going to be something that you don't want to do. Exactly. There's parts that suck no matter what. And then it's like, and I've seen it. There are very clear examples in my life of 20 to 25-year-olds that are like, I'm not doing that job, or I'm quitting that job because I don't like it, or they made me do this and I didn't want to do that. So you know what I mean? It's like, how are you gonna get anywhere? How are you gonna get anywhere? So
they easy to quit. You know what I'm saying? They don't have that tenacity to keep, just to keep going.
Exactly. So that's something that folks can take, and that's something I kind of like to spin for kids especially is like, look, like there's going to be things even in your most ideal situation when you're older, right? There's always going to be a piece. And that's the same with anything. That's relationships, that's life, that's
Yeah, it's
family, that's
everything.
jobs, that's
Yeah,
everything.
everything.
So, just having that resilience, that tenacity to keep it moving.
Yeah. So how are you navigating right now? I know the school year is coming up. Like, how are you navigating, this next school year? Like, do you know what it's going to look like as far as kids? Are they going to be coming to school? Are they going to be doing the virtual thing? Like how is that going to work?
Yeah. So my school district has actually decided to go 100% remote for the first quarter. So as of right now, we are planning on having students back in the middle of October again, looking at things and how they look by October. But yeah, so I've been working for about 3 weeks now with my leadership team and my principal, assistant principal, all that kind of stuff. And we're just making plans, setting up the school, preparing for both situations. Like, this is how we're going to move as it's remote. It's like how we're going to move when kids can actually come back. And so it's pretty crazy, having these circumstances are unbelievable to try to prepare for, right?
Yeah,
Every day.
no one could have predicted this. No one.
And every week is changing, and it's important. Like, again, I'll say, what if things were smaller, right? If I wasn't deciding how an entire city of kids are trying to go back to this. But if I had 2 schools, and I was just in charge of this school and this school, right? I could take a look. Has the community been responsible? What's the illness rate for just my small community like that? And you could make more informed decisions that could be safer, right? When you're trying to make decisions for such big of a group, it's like
it's hard to manage.
And then people mad because it's changing and this and this. So I'm just like, look, from day one, I just roll with the punches. I just say, whatever you got, I'm going to be adaptable. I'm going to be flexible, and I'm going to give you my everything on whatever situation. Oh, it changed 20 minutes later. Cool. I'm going to give you the same thing for this next situation. And that's all I can do.
Yeah, love that. Now, what advice would you give to somebody that wants to be like you, whether that's, a teacher or just being in the education system in general? Like, what advice would you give to that person?
The biggest thing is know your purpose, know your why, because when it hits the fan, you got to have something that centers you. This is a profession where folks get burnt out quickly, and I think the only way you can get burnt out though is if your mind and your heart are not in the right spot, right? Like, if you're doing it for money, you're gonna be out of this in a year. If you're doing it for, the title, you're going to be out of it in 3 years. As soon as you realize that there's other people ahead of you that they're going to give it to first, or that had different education or different opportunity or different experience, then you're going to be out of it quick, right? But if you're doing it out of love of your heart for yourself and for kids, that's the hardest flame to burn out. And so that's my biggest thing is like, know your why, have a way of reminding yourself of what your purpose and your why is, have people around you that can help remind you when it gets tough, when you're paying out of pocket, when the kid curses you out, when the school system won't pay you for the extra day you work. Those are the things like, why am I doing it? Wait, why am I here? Being able to remind yourself and have others that are going to keep you grounded and remind you in those tough times is really the way to stick it out and be. And again, I'm only 3, 4, 5, 6. This is my 6th year in education, and I like to say I'm still as springy and ready to go as I was day one. Just because, and have I been the whole time? Absolutely not. I've been at the bottom, like, oh, I ain't doing it anymore. Y'all can miss me with that. But my biggest thing is being able to center myself and remember why I'm doing it.
Now, you just mentioned your why. What is your why? What is your purpose?
In life or as an educator?
Both.
The same, to be honest.
Okay.
My purpose in life is to love, to give love, receive love. Everything I do is centered around love. And so that's kind of my grounding purpose. That takes a lot of different forms, right? There's love for yourself, there's love for others, there's love for your family, there's love for your job. But it really comes down to that fundamental decision between love and fear. And so, and when I think professionally, I have an opportunity, I have innate talents. And I feel that this is the best way of working with children to spread my love. As I navigate the education system, I've found, from being a teacher to being a dean to, working in leadership and stuff like that, I've found that there are these other capacities that I have to spread love to kids. And I hope in the future that it turns in, what I would like it to turn into is actually my own mentoring organization, where I can do that exclusively in conjunction with education, but just more about like that personal piece, that mindset kind of piece is what I really am passionate about. And like, again, this is the capacity from everything I've tried, from all of my experience, that I feel the best way that I can spread love. And so I'm gonna do it as long as I can.
Yeah, I love that. What were some of the mistakes or like challenges that you had, along the way in your journey?
As an educator.
As a person, man.
As a person. A lot of roadblocks, man. Not a lot of roadblocks, but we touched on a few of them already. I say, I talked about a big challenge with basketball, and the vision I set up for myself and it not coming true, and having to be resilient through that. That is one experience that I use to inform all of my challenges. Anytime there's a challenge, like, remember that time that, it's not always as explicit, but like in my mind, my mindset reverts back to, you've hit a roadblock before, you worked hard to get through it, you saw the benefits, even if the benefits weren't how you envisioned them, and you became better because of it. And so that thought pattern, the fact that I have that thought pattern, I can get through anything, right? Like anything, right? So, I've had job roadblocks, that first year of teaching out here in Denver and seeing this whole culture thing and this restorative practices, and feeling really, really, really not passionate about the teaching part anymore, like curriculum and instruction, like, nah. And so I had it like, I was like, I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to be like, kids were, oh my gosh, man, this is a different breed of kids out here, man. And it's,
you think they was different than us in a good way or a bad way?
Bad. Wow. I've been trying to dissect things for the past 2 years. Like, what is different about Denver and the kids here and the school I'm at, whatever. But what I've landed on is that it comes from this sense of entitlement, which I don't think that me and you personally have, but as well as like where
entitled to what? What was we entitled to? Exactly.
Yeah. So that piece, when I came here, oh gosh, the most disrespectful that I've never been disrespected like this. Never. And you could think for yourself. Somebody disrespected you just off rip versus somebody that was entitled and disrespecting you. Like, actually, like they feel in the right for being like, that's a whole different level. See, that's a whole different level.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
So that was a roadblock for me, man. And I'm just driving to work like, I don't want to do this, man. I don't want to be treated like this by kids, by children.
Right.
Oh, Lord.
Right. And you can't really do anything. You definitely can't put your hands on them, because then that's a whole nother set of problems that you're gonna have to deal with there. But yeah, so that was a roadblock for me even 2 years ago. But being able to, again, here's my cycle. Here's my positive thought pattern that I've trained myself to is roadblock, work hard and reap the benefits. And here I am as a leader. I didn't even know this existed for me. I just saw myself being a teacher and writing it out and being able to be a leader, damn near run a school. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's a big deal. Absolutely. Now, if you could go back and do it all over again, would you change anything, or would you do anything differently? Or I should say this, what advice would you give your younger self?
Everything. I wouldn't change anything, except I do find myself saying that I wish I would have been truer to myself in terms of my sexuality earlier. Yeah. I honestly, that is something that I do regret, that I was being so fearful. Right. I wasn't going out of love. I was going out of fear around like expressing myself and being who I was. And I think I lost out on just some opportunities to spread love. If that was my purpose, that's my purpose. I lost some opportunities to spread love and also to love myself for a lot of years. And so, I think that's probably what any person that has ever been in the closet would say. Like, I wish I would have came earlier, but because it does feel good to feel just be who you are. I mean, there's nothing that equates to that feeling, right? Like emotional freedom. And so I just think about that a little bit. And so I say, I wish I would have been a little truer to myself, maybe about 4 or 5 years earlier. Maybe really that I was all right. I was all right through like high school. I think I was cool, but definitely getting to college and like being, I could have could have way more fun. Let's
Of
just say
course,
that.
I can I can imagine. All right, we ain't gonna talk about that. But all right, how would you define success to you?
um, just honestly being able to, I don't want to be cliche by saying feeling happy, but to a degree, that's what it is. Like feeling that you're living out your purpose in every way, right? There's people that are living out their purpose professionally, but not in their personal life, right? But like, so making sure all of those are all vibrating at the same wavelength. I think that's success. And it looks different for everybody, right? Like, I consider myself successful for where I'm at and who I am and the things I've been through. But I don't think, but this is not my ultimate, right? Like there's some areas where I'm still like, nah, I got to vibrate a little different on that, or not quite aligned there. My mind says not quite where I want it to be there. So it's just knowing I'm going to continue growing. And that's always part of my process.
Okay. If they did a movie on your whole life, who would you want to play you, and why?
I'm not an option. Now, am I an option?
Nah, not in this scenario. Nah, because I don't even know if you can act. So you're not in this. Nah.
I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It's a good question. I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna put that in my back pocket. I don't have it there. Yeah.
Everything going on, in society right now, as far as like racial injustice and everything. How do you use your platform just to, uplift and spread positivity?
Yeah. Well, I took the opportunity to do a few things over Instagram over the summer. Just as that as I wouldn't even say that's a platform for me.
Nah, it is. It is. Nah, go ahead.
But yeah, I'd say that's one. Just I would say I was utilizing my personality more, like being able to have conversations, which I think is the biggest piece of all of this in terms of changing mindsets over the next few generations, is that piece. But what I pretty much found from that was that each of us has an opportunity, right? Like your platform is what you do every day, and what you do every day is usually your job, and also how you operate in your personal life. But really thinking about how people are utilizing their professional arenas in order to make a difference. And so myself as an educator, I have a wonderful opportunity to utilize that and continue to make it part of the conversation for staff and students and people that don't quite get it yet, and things like that. So as an educator, like I want to continue to uplift our Black students that don't quite know their worth yet, and help educate myself and others that are staff members that are working with students, so that we can start to chip away at some of these subtleties of racism and perpetuating the system. And I realized that education is one of the systems that is systematically racist. And so I can either be a part of that and go with the flow, or I can be a part of it and resist the direction that it's always gone. So that's kind of how I am going to utilize, my position as an educator, as an educational leader, now, like not just a teacher, right? Like teachers have a lot because they're sitting in front of the kids every day. Like you have a chance to make a huge difference, but I see now as a leader, I have more. I'm not in the classroom every day. I have more of an influence on the system a little bit more than just like my individual classroom.
Okay. So what's the impact that you want to have on the world?
Positive, of course. Founded and rooted in love, honestly. Just hopefully just being an example through my life choices and the way that I handle myself or handle my challenges or handle, people that come at me sideways, just being an example for how we can approach those things with love rather than with fear. Honestly, that's the only thing I want to do. I was just having a conversation with my partner yesterday about kind of that same sort of thing. Like all I can do, like I can't persuade anybody to do anything differently or that sort of thing. Like it's not about persuasion. It's leading by example. And so when you think about, people, if any spiritual or religious people, you think about who that one person is, whether it be God, Jesus, Buddha, Moses, like anybody, right? Like their capacity to love, even in the face of disrespect or hate or fear, right, is what made them divine beings, right? And I'm not saying I'm Jesus, but I'm saying like that's the aspiration, right? Is like in the face of anything to still be able to react to give love no matter what anybody else is giving to me.
Yeah. What is your biggest fear?
Oh boy. My biggest fear is being not my biggest fear is not acting out of love. Like to me, like we're getting deep right now, but
yeah,
I really, to me, there only is love and fear. And so if I'm not acting out of love, I'm acting out of fear. So I'm fearful of acting out of fear. Like I don't want to operate from that. And of course I'm human. We all do at different points in time because of our traumas, because of our experiences and things like that. But yeah, like I would hate to be a person or get into a mindset where I'm comfortable with like just acting out of fear all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to be blinded. I don't want to be like a lot of people are, like they just live their life not even really contemplating some of these things ever.
Yeah. And
right?
they don't even realize it, because they so used to that pattern, they don't even realize
exactly.
it.
So I'm fearful of being unconscious, right? Like I always be in that conscious realm of just like feeling my feelings, knowing the vibrations, acting in a loving way always, like, and knowing it.
Yeah.
Like, knowing it.
Yeah. If you could pick 3 people dead or alive to have dinner with, just to pick their brain, who would you pick and why?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, one is alive, Marianne Williamson, which is, she's an author and spiritual leader. She actually was running for president a few months ago. But I pick her just because most of my spiritual mindset comes from books that I've read of hers. So I think that'd be really cool to be like, look, I'm going through this, help me.
Yeah.
we have the same thought. I just need help seeing it, Yeah. So that would be super dope. I would say my grandmother passed away, I think almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
Just because like sometimes I just think about the opportunity for her to see everything that I've done.
Yeah. She was super cool too. Yeah.
So definitely that. And I think a third one, for some reason, Obama is coming to my mind.
I'm not mad at that. Yeah.
I want to say him just because like how he was able to like just get an inside, like I'm not big into politics and like I don't really understand that whole world.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's not out of love, so I avoid it. But I know there are things I could understand. And so for somebody that I respect and I feel like could have an honest and good conversation about like what it's like to navigate that world.
Yeah, because it's a whole. I already know it's a whole lot that come with that. There's so many layers to it. Like, how do you stay a good person with all of that chaotic stuff going on?
Exactly. So yeah, I think it would be cool to just pick his brain about that. Excuse me. Yeah, so I think that'd be pretty cool.
All right. Let's say hypothetically, like if you had to stop being in the education system right now, you couldn't be a teacher or anything. What other career would you be doing right now?
I think it would be for sure. It would be, well, like I said, my dream is to do kind of like that mentorship thing. So, I mean, that kind of works with education, but it's not necessarily education. And I also think about like the entrepreneurial type thing. Like I'm attracted to like owning my own business and kind of like impacting people in a way. That way I've always really kind of wanted to be like a motivational speaker. Like if I could travel and
that's definitely up your lane. Like that's definitely going to happen. I'm gonna put that in the air. That's going to happen.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I see myself. So that to me like was kind of before I like
it's kind of like what you already do in a way. It's just it's really like the same thing. So it's not gonna be like a hard transition. I already know that you can do it.
Oh, absolutely. I love being in front of people. I love like I don't get stage fright. I love, and then just like talking and preaching positivity and love and that sort of thing. And just like helping people shift their mindsets and perspective. Like that's my passion. So like any capacity I could do that, whether that's mentoring, whether that's, speaking to large crowds, talking to adults, any type of little nook that I could do that in, I think I'd be pretty happy.
Okay. So what's next for you? Like, what does the future hold for Sequoia Austin? What's next?
Yeah, man, I'm going to grind and learn as much as I can as a leader. In my current position right now, I plan on sticking it out and being here a few more years, just to see what I can learn and what experiences I can put on my resume, so that when I do want to go do that next thing that's gonna make me happy, whether it be starting a mentorship program or some other version of something that I can't even fathom right now, because that's how blessed I always am, of just like the craziest thing that I never can imagine. Just being open to them allows it to draw it to me. And so I think there are paths that I haven't even considered that are there, but I'm also a big visualizer. Like I'm always like, I visualize what I want and then I go towards it. And if something else happens better and on the process, cool. But yeah, so I'm probably gonna stick around in Denver. I'm getting married next summer. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we're probably gonna move back on the East Coast in a few years. She's studying to be a vet tech, so she'll have that degree all wrapped up by then, and we could just kind of glow up over there and hopefully have some kids and be near our parents, and just I'm gonna have a bomb house with a bunch of land, and I'm just gonna have my feet up, start my family, and just being happy and spreading love. That's pretty much what it is.
That's what I'm talking about. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, the person, the woman that was always loving no matter what. Exactly what I told you before about, like, just, I want people to say, dang, people threw this at her, people treated her that way, but she always came back in a loving way. She always, did the loving thing, never attacked back, never, got defensive, never stepped out of pocket, but always just like, was that person that's going to give you love no matter what, like no matter what. So, that's it. That's what I want it to be.
I love that, man. I appreciate you taking out the time. You know what I'm saying? This was a great conversation. I definitely learned some things that I didn't know. Any last words?
No, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I wasn't expecting all of that. But I love it.
I told you.
I love it. Like I'm down to, even offline, like let's get into this type of stuff again.
Yeah. I told him I told you I had some questions that I ain't never asked. So I was like, this is the perfect platform too. So I was like, hey, shoot my shot.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate you, and you always been doing your thing. I love to flip the script and get those answers from you sometime and see, where you're at, where you're headed, where you
just let me know. Yeah, just let me know.
But I always appreciate you. I love you, my brother. You on doing your thing, and just include me wherever you can, because I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Like, this is the friendship, this is the love right here. That that this don't die.
Yeah, it's always love. Over 2 decades. This is crazy. Wow. That's crazy.
We're getting old, like that 1992 there.
You already know, but we still young at heart, though. You already know we still young at heart. Got that young energy. Thanks for tuning in to Hustling Different. Once again, this is Jerome, JSAK the Best Smith. It's a 24/7 lifestyle. Until next time, we don't make moves, we make movements.
We move different, cause we want different. Diversify our bars, cause we hustle